Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's show is a 3-story special with savage beasts in tow. I'm sure you guys will enjoy these stories. They definitely are nightmare worthy. Please do let me know down below in the comments. Of course, please do like and share. Without further ado, let's get into tonight's first story, entitled Animal Control. Let's get straight into that. My days of rescuing animals may be over for now. For years I have been volunteering at the local shelter and fostered various types of animals, even the ones some would call less than desirable. I am also the friendly neighbourhood critter wrangler, and it's not unusual for my phone to ring in the middle of the night because there is a small animal I need to go round up. So, last night when my phone rang at midnight, the caller ID said County Animal Shelter and Sanctuary, I had no reason to think twice about it. "Hey Jill," I said, still half asleep. "What's up?" But the voice that answered was not Jill's. It was a deep male voice I did not recognise. It told me that Jill was not on call at the shelter this evening, and that he was filling in for her. I thought this was a bit odd. We're a small organisation, you see, and I know almost everyone that works there. I remembered we'd been talking about hiring a few new folks, so I assumed that was all it was. He advised me an animal had been found under a house in the neighbourhood over from mine. It was unclear what kind of animal, but it was thought to be some kind of dog, and that it was possibly injured. I agreed to go check it out, and if possible, retrieve the animal and drop it off at the shelter. I quickly got dressed, grabbed my flashlight and control pole, jumped in my truck and was on my way. The house, well, it was nearby, and I knew my way around the neighbourhood, so it did not take me long to get there. I got out of the truck slowly so that I wouldn't spook the animal, and then I noticed all the lights in the house were off. Odd. Maybe the residents made the report, then went back to bed. I walked around the home, looking for a crawl space. There was of course a full moon out, so it wasn't too hard to find my way around. Finally, I found an opening that led to the crawl space, and dropped down on all fours and peered in. The crawl space was pitch black, but I could vaguely make out a shape in the darkness. I reached for my flashlight so I could get a better look, and that is when the thick stench of blood hit my nose. The metallic sense of fresh blood was everywhere. Whatever was under the house was hurt and bad. I prayed for the best, but suspected the worst. Still, on all fours, I slide back a bit. Sometimes when an animal is injured, it could become aggressive out of fear, and I wanted to be safe away before making my presence known. As I was crawling backwards, my hand landed on something hard and smooth. I picked it up and examined it in the pale moonlight. It took me a moment before I realised what I was looking at. It was the on-call cell phone from the shelter. It has a label on the back that says County Animal Shelter and Sanctuary, along with the address so it could be returned if found. Jill had made the label because the phones kept getting misplaced. My heart practically stopped. Something was not right here. Shakily, I turned on the flashlight and proceeded to shine it in the direction of the shape under the house. What I saw next made my blood run cold. I raised my hand to my mouth just in time to stifle a scream. It was Jill. Her throat had been slashed ear to ear, and she was laying on her back, eyes wide open. A thick pool of dark red blood had formed around her. I sprang to my feet, feeling dizzy and nauseous. What the fuck was going on? Before I could process what I was seeing any further, I heard footsteps behind me. I whipped around quickly, and there he was. He was wearing dark clothing. A hood obscured the top part of his face, but I could see his cruel smile gleaming in the moonlight, and something else gleaming in his right hand. A familiar, deep male voice asked me if I had found the injured dog in the mocking tone. I swallowed, or at least tried to. My mouth had suddenly gone completely dry as a bone. He moved toward me, raising what I could now clearly see was a razor-sharp knife. He made a slashing motion with it towards me. I raised an arm up defensively and felt a sharp sting as the knife sliced into my flesh. I gasped as white, hot pain raced up my arm. Then I felt the world begin to spin around me. The hair on my neck stood straight up, hands shaking, and then my whole body began to shake and rumble as I doubled over. Here we go, I thought woefully to myself. I looked up just in time to see his malicious smile twist into a grimace of shock and fear, and then all went black. I woke up at home, not knowing exactly how I got there. I never remember that part. As I became more alert, the smell of blood filled my nostrils once again. I looked down to see, much to my horror, but not necessarily to my surprise, that I was indeed covered in viscera. I quickly ripped my clothes off, or at least what was left of them, and ran into the bathroom. I scrubbed blood off of what seemed like every inch of my body. I don't know how long I was in the shower, but when I was done, my skin was red and raw. The wound on my arm was already healed, and scar tissue had already started to form. I wrapped myself in a robe and sat down heavily on the couch in front of the television. Reluctantly, I turned on the TV and flipped the channel to the local news station. And there it was. The new reporter stood somberly in front of the house I was at last night. I sat wide-eyed, watching in horror as she described the terrible scene that the neighbours had found earlier this morning. I could barely focus, but heard. The homeowners were found dead in their beds, throats slashed. Another body was found in crawl space, and pieces of another body are still being recovered from various places around the property. Police Chief O'Brien says this is the most disturbing crime scene he has ever encountered in all his years on the force. In the background of the shot, I could see the men and women in hazmat suits carrying black bags and loading them into coolers, and bodies being wheeled around on stretchers obscured by white sheets. I zoned out for a moment and came back in to hear, ripped to shreds as though by some kind of large animal. Police say it will be a while before the fourth body can be identified. After what felt like an eternity, I turned the TV off and stood up, shook my head, and went to my closet. I began ripping clothes off their hangers and stuffing them into the well-worn suitcase. I gathered all my valuable items up and any important documents, threw my phone in the trash and left my truck keys behind. Now, here I sit on a Greyhound bus on my way to a new place, a new life, with a new name. This isn't the first time I've had to do this, and unless I can find a cure for my condition, it likely won't be the last. I've already purchased a new phone and changed my looks as much as I can. I'm not sure if anyone will be looking for me, but I learned long ago not to take risks. This has been my life for a while now, ever since the first time I met death face to face and somehow escaped its grasp. I didn't get away unscathed though, and I was left with this curse. At least I know there are others out there like me, strays that roam from place to place, praying that they will be rescued, hoping that they will be cured. All we want is a place to finally come home, but until then, this is the best that we can do. Number 2. Hell in Hill Country. Let's get straight into that. My girlfriend Sally and I lead a rather tranquil life. She's a nurse at the local hospital and I work in a warehouse just on the outskirts of town. Day to day, we go to our places of work and in the evenings we sit in front of our television and binge watch our shows as we eat dinner. On the weekends, we travel into town from our little one-bedroom house and shop till we drop. Well, at least till she does. But one night, our tranquil life would be disrupted by something terrible. "Don't forget your coffee," my wife kindly reminds me as I rush towards the front door. Ah, you're a lifesaver. We give each other an intimate kiss and head our separate ways. The remainder of the day is spent on the line packaging up items to ship with obligatory text sent to my wife telling her something sweet. She responds with emojis and Shakespearean quotes. "Bill, can I see you in my office?" John, my boss, asks in a low tone from behind me. "Sure thing." Casually sliding my phone into my front pocket, I zigzag closely behind through the maze of boxed items to his office. As we enter, I have to catch myself from gagging on the smell of damp socks that looms in the air. The sun shines through the sunroof directly above us, illuminating floating dust particles. Dirt covers the concrete ground and crunches under my boots every time I adjust my footing. "Have a seat," John says as he takes a seat himself. His rather large stomach hits the desk as he does so. I'll stand. Don't want to get too comfortable. I crack a fake smile, hoping not to come off rude. "Whatever tickles your fancy," he chuckles at his own statement. Unamused, I stand silent, but filled with curiosity on what this could be about. "Look, I'll cut right to it, Bill. You're one of my best employees." My cheeks turn a light shade of red. I know I'm a good employee, but hearing it is still music to my ears. "That's why I'm promoting you to floor supervisor. You'll be in charge of the entire floor of employees, about 30 of them to be exact. You okay with that?" He nods his head as if trying to be cool. In this moment, his over-brimming cheesiness is for once appreciated. He could say anything and it would come out as gold. "Of course, sir, I'm honoured." I give him a firm handshake and strut out the office. My head bobs with confidence as I walk past my employees. The rest of the shift is a blur and my productivity is low, because all I can think about is the future, the things in which I'm going to accomplish and the places I can go from here. Bzzz. The sound of machines halting snaps me back to reality. I practically skip to the punch-out clock, but manage to contain my giddiness just a while longer. As I drive home, I roll the windows down and let the crisp fall air rush through as I travel at a smooth 70 miles per hour. Loud rock music blares through my almost blown out speakers and the engine to my truck revs over it. In the distance, I see something hobbling out into the middle of the street. It stops as I fastly approach. I slam my foot on the brake, bringing my truck to a screeching stop. It's a white husky with matted fur. He holds his back paw off the ground as if trying not to put pressure on it. The dirt and filth which covers his white fur looks etched into his skin. He's whimpering and has a helpless look in his eyes. His limbs protrude out of his side from starvation. My heart aches for him. I grab my water bottle out of the cup holder and proceed to exit my truck. I cautiously walk towards him. He frightens and backs away out the path of my headlights and into the darkness. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you," I gently tell him as I showcase the water bottle. I inch closer and suddenly a chill runs down my spine. Ignoring it, I progress with my plan and squint to get a better look at him as he moves off of the farm road and into complete darkness. My eyes adjust to the darkness just as the singular cloud which is covering the moon vacates from in front of it. The moonlight illuminates the husky's appearance, and it has changed. Its fur is no longer white and dirty, but black and gleaming. What was bones and limbs has become a mass of muscle. Foam oozes from the sides of his mouth as he growls deeply and ferociously at me. His eyes are red and beady with ravenous rage. Wrapped around his neck is a heavy chain that leads several feet behind him into a bushy area. The chain tightens and the bushes begin rustling. I am stricken by fear and unable to move, as if paralysed. My heart hammers into my throat and my stomach sinks to the ground beneath me. The branches snap and the ground shakes for a moment, but abruptly stops. The air becomes frigid and stiff. My heavy breaths become visible and louder as each grueling second passes. Out of the bushes steps a tall, hooded figure. Its long black robe reaches the ground and trails behind it. The helms on it are tattered and withered. Its grey, bony hand grips the chain of the husky's turned beast. Hidden out of sight inside its hood is a face, but a thick cloud of steam escapes from it. Despite my sudden paralysis, I muster the strength to move as this horrendous thing stretches one of its elongated arms out towards me. I turn and I bolt like a bat out of hell to my truck. I do not remember the ride home due to driving on autopilot. All I kept thinking about was that thing. What the hell was it? I attempt telling myself it wasn't real, just to ease my nerves. I don't speak of it to my wife or anyone else for that matter. I would sound like a complete lunatic. Unfortunately, the only way home from work is on that desolate highway. Luckily, I do not encounter the cloaked figure or its hellish beast. But when I pull into my driveway, I discover something which only proves the events which occurred were real. I kneeled down onto the driveway next to my truck and examined charred paw prints. I follow them until they stop at my front door. I swing it open and sprint in to find my wife in a deep sleep on the couch. On the ground next to her are paw prints that are burned into the carpet. She appears seemingly unharmed, so I search the rest of the house. I enter our bedroom, and on the bed is a black leather suitcase. Etched in the material are our initials. I move towards it with great caution. I unlatch it, and it yawns open. Other than fabricated lining, it's empty. As I turn to my dresser, there's an hourglass flipped over on it. The sand runs through the hole, filling up the bottom. It's just past halfway mark. Suddenly, I hear what sounds like nails scraping against the wall in the hallway. It gets closer and closer, sending a chill running down my spine. I stand helplessly and do the only thing I can, watch as the last grains of sand fall onto the nearly completed pile. Number 3. There's a reason for my town's curfew. Let's get straight into that. There's a time between the anarchist teen years and the impending sense of forced responsibility of 30 and beyond that really says, fuck it, I'm an adult and I'll do what I want. After all, if the law is not protecting anyone, then no one should even realise when it's broken. My town has a curfew. No one out without police escort past 1 AM. I thought just going outside would not cause anyone harm. I had no idea the curfew was there to protect me. 3 nights ago now. Anything before that still feels somewhat hazy. The damned air conditioned was on the fritz again, and being on the 5th floor of my apartment building was like camping by the mouth of an active volcano. The nights are cool enough, lingering somewhere around the comfortable mid-50, but there's never a breeze here. Even with the windows open wide and the door cracked open for a draft, I could sell the crockpot and slow roast tomorrow's dinner on the kitchen counter. After hours of rolling around in a violent cascade of sweat and crumpled sheets, swearing at myself that if I could just fall asleep, I needed a walk. The late night air would cool me off, and quiet stroll always helps dissipate stress. I slipped on my gym shorts and ratty t-shirt, then made my way into the hall. My town was not as small as some of the rural communities out west, but it was tight-knit enough where I could leave my door unlocked at night. Probably for the best, since the landlord hadn't fixed the lock. Once it clicked into place, a loud clang shoots it back open again. I remember glancing at the microwave clock just before leaving. 2:34 a.m. A bubbling stitch of guilt and dread rolled over my stomach, like being caught as a child after you've broken a lamp from playing ball outside. What a stupid rule. It's just a curfew. Towns all over the country have them. There's 5 cops for all of us, and they can't be watching everything all night. Limit the people outside, limit the work you have to do. Simple as that. I was just going out for a walk. I'm an adult. Are they really going to tell me otherwise? 4 flights of stairs, even going down was enough to get my heart rate moving a bit. Maybe that was what I needed, a little exercise, a way to vent frustration and tire me out. I picked up the pace and threw my shoulder into the door outside. The glass door shuttered and bounced me back. I had no idea that the door even locked. Odd as it was, and annoying, it killed my momentum, albeit brief, but still, momentum. I slid the deadbolt back and out I went, jogging up the shallow hill of the parking lot towards the road. The yellow glow of the street lights illuminated the sidewalk. Without it, I'd have been on my face every few steps. Uneven cement blocks lifted by roots wore and cracked with age. The crunching squeak of loose pebbles grinding underfoot and rhythmic pounding of my steps mixed well with the brisk night breeze. Wait, breeze? The wind never blows at night here. I closed my eyes and stopped to bask in the glory. The cool waves across my sweat-coated skin was heaven. I drew a deep breath and sputtered. A pungent stench slammed itself down my throat. The stink of sulphur and festering garbage packed into a tyre and set aflame would make even the most battle-hardened septic worker drive heave the last week's worth of lunches. My eyes shot open, expecting nothing but the street-lit sidewalk, but the lights were off, and he was in my face. I jumped back, half stumbling but catching myself before a fall. His horrid aroma danced around me as if I had rolled in his filth. It radiated upwards, stinging my eyes and making them water to the point where tears rolled down my cheeks. His eyes watered, too. Thick, puffy, reddened rings around his bloodshot, dead-eyed gaze. My heart rate all but doubled. "Are you okay?" I asked. "Just get the shit out of me, man." He never moved save for one sharp breath every half a minute or so. Keeping my eyes locked on him, I started a slow and careful slide backwards until there was at least 7 or 10 foot gap between us. What happened to the lights? Silence. They do blackouts this late or something? Sharp breath. Oh, fuck this. That was enough of him. I offered a sheepish wave of courtesy and turned to run back home. As I spun and raised my leg to start wide stride, his frigid grip reached over my shoulder and dug his fingers under my collarbone. "I can't remember," he whispered. I dipped my shoulder and tried to press forward, but his grip tightened, holding me in place by pinching the bone itself. Animalistic instinct kicked in. I thrashed and flailed, trying to land any blow I could against him, but his angle was perfect. All I could do was slap his hand like a frightened child. "Help me remember!" His screams pierced the uneasy silence. They echoed around in my head over and over as he yanked me backwards. I stumbled on the uneven pavement and fell with my back to the ground. The man climbed over me, his stench weighing down on my chest, stopping me from drawing breath. An open hand clamped over my nose and mouth. Something flowed from me. It was not my breath, though. Every bit of it leaving my body felt as if a piece of me was stripped away. A cavernous void left in its wake. My adrenaline surged, mind blank and filled with a primal urge to flee. I flailed and struggled to no avail, but eventually he lifted his hand. He stood and stepped off of me. He smiled as if streetlights flickered back to life. "Now I remember," he said. I scurried to my feet and leapt into a full sprint towards my apartment, taking only a split second to glance over my shoulder. There was no trace of him. He was gone. Back down the shallow hill and to the door, I yanked it open and bounded up the 4 flights of stairs. Into the hall, I stopped. It must be the adrenaline. The fear. What the hell apartment do I live in? I tiptoed down the hall, trying the knobs until I stumbled upon a door in the middle of the hall that was left ajar. What a stupid thing to blank on. This must be mine. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The dim light kept a steady glow down past the kitchen. I walked inside and jumped as I heard a voice. "Can I help you?" He flicked the light on and looked around. The place seemed so familiar, but was it my home? Could it have been? It all seemed so familiar. At least, I thought it did. The only thing I could really recall was that smell. The rotten, egg-burning corpse putrid smell. It wafted throughout the entire apartment. That's a smell I could never forget. "Sorry," I said. "Rough night. This is stupid, but I can't remember where I live. Well, not here." He grabbed me by the shoulders and hurried me out. The door clicked behind me, but there was a loud clang and the door crept ajar once more. He should really get that fixed. I never made it home that night. I wandered around outside, alone, with the street lights flickering with each one I walked by. I decided to write down what I remember from that night 3 nights ago, because everything else feels hazy. I can't remember. Someone help me remember. Wow, hope you guys like those particularly strange and intriguing encounter stories. Obviously they're going to be fiction there, but please do let me know what you thought down below in the comments. Of course, please do like and share. Thank you ever so much to everybody that's subscribed in the last week. Fantastic boost in numbers. Absolutely amazed, and I can't thank you all enough. Hope you enjoy the show. Remember guys, if you're out and about and it's a dark, rainy night, above all, remember, be safe, not sorry.